Welcome, beautiful souls, well, I haven't been here for some time, so it's good to be getting back into it. And always have my beautiful soul brother, Michael Muir, with me. Is just such a treat and a delight. How are you today, my love?
I'm still coming down from a powerful New Moon in Leo session I did last night, but feels very linked to today, actually, so should be good.
That's awesome. And of course, it is Lion's Gate portal has opened already. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that and the energies that are going on right at this point leading up to the 8th of the 8th?
Okay, so I mean, I firstly want to just say, because I did see another post saying, "Oh, don't mess around with this portal. There's dark forces and blah blah blah." And I just want to say that I think everything can be worked with in a light-filled sense, and that this is always my favorite part of the year. I'm very connected with Thoth and the Egyptian energies from that timeline. So I always find that this time of the year is very powerful. Also, Leo, the Leo full moon, the Leo new moon, Lion's Gate in the middle, it's a very good time to do that shadow work, to do that deep heart introspective work, and really take your own personal process to a deeper level. So I think it's good to harness the opportunity of this time. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And really open our throat chakras up, really allow ourselves to roar, because I feel being fierce at the moment is what's driving this ascension mission for us all, that we've learned that we don't have to be the fake woke, love light energies all the time, because we know we're a loving soul. It's innate within us. It's actually time to get fierce, to harness that lion energy or lioness energy and see where that's going to take us. So that's amazing. And we will circle back about the narratives going around, throwing a lot of light workers, archangels, even Thoth has been considered dark side, Metatron's Q, Flower of Life. There's so much going on, and we want to discuss that maybe at the end of today's podcast, just to speak from our perspective why there's so much dissing going on in the community, and seemingly taking people in an opposite direction to what we've been training with and utilizing in terms of sacred geometry and angel therapy for so long. So that'll be interesting to get into as well. But today's topic is a little bit of a deeper one. It's so relevant because we all carry shame. We're healing our collective shame. We know that we really, in terms of the descension life wave, I would say we've hit the base of that descension life wave. We're seeing and we're hearing about just all the depths of depravity that's playing out on the planet, from the child sex trafficking, sex slavery, pornography, people misusing their sexual energy, not necessarily because they want to, but because it's in the media and the conditioning, to be the skank or to be the hoe, that's cool to be that kind of energy, wanting to rise it out of the basement and out of the tunnels, really, in terms of the chakra system, and rise it up into our higher chakras. So we're looking at that as we move back through the ascension life wave. We've come into descension, lowest point, and we're moving out of it because we're at the end of the procession of equinoxes. There's a opportunity en masse, really, for us to rise if we choose to take it. So I wanted to do a little bit of an overlay here. This is really fascinating, and this is from teachings of David Hawkins' Power versus Force book, and it's something that we teach within many of our My Health courses, and it's to look at the scale of human consciousness. And hopefully people can see that if you're watching it on your smaller device. You'll see there at the bottom of the list is shame, and the resonance that it's been assigned is 20. So David Hawkins was a scientist but also an enlightened master, and he gathered so much data together over many, many years of doing kinesiology studies and was able to map it out. So we'll see at the other end of the spectrum, enlightenment as a point of difference sits at a quotient of 700 to 1,000. So we're seeing what a vast difference shame consciousness resonates or vibrates at. And so we have to know, for all of us, when we're carrying shame, and we all are, let's be honest, we're all carrying shame. it actually creates an implosion type of energy where you almost want to take yourself out of the game. People sitting in shame consciousness for too long literally, want to suicide. They don't want to be here. They feel that they've failed in so many ways. And it's all a state of mind. It's all a frequency that we're embodying that can be alchemized, and we can start to move through the scale of human consciousness and move back into the enlightened state, which is more the original blueprint of who we are. We're all enlightened as ultimate consciousness, as God, Goddess frequency. We come as fractal units of that one stream of consciousness. So we're all little godlets, but, of course, we move into suffering because the soul chose to have those experiences as a point of contrast. It'll never make sense to the 3D mind why we suffer and why, these atrocities are going on to our beautiful children, and all of us have been, or most of us have been, swept up at some point in some kind of abuse, sexual misconduct, whether we've been the victim of that or the perpetrator of that. It's a big topic for us to explore, but something that definitely needs to be addressed. And Michael, I saw a video of yours a little while ago, which kind of initiated this video, and you were doing a lot of work with the Sacral Chakra. So do you want to talk about it from that perspective, the chakras, and anything else that's coming through for you to talk about, to the collective today?
So what just was coming through as you were talking about shame and the visual there is that this is something that has been in humanity for such a long time. This isn't just our childhood experiences and what happened to us as kids and what didn't happen to us and our relationship with our parents. Of course, that can lead to shaming around sexuality and putting our sacral underground. I feel like it's when the sexual charge was not okay at home, or it was toxic in regards to sexuality in some form, then I feel like there's a distortion in the sacral, and then we sort of clamp it. There's all the emotions of guilt, shame, and all that stuff that gets held there. And so it's hidden. It's hidden from view because it's not something we want to feel. And it's hidden in the collective because it's not something that we want to get triggered by hearing about, or hasn't been till the last couple of years more so. And so this is the unearthing of the collective chakra, so that all these hidden aspects of child trafficking, the DUMs and all that stuff can be cleared out energetically. But it's by doing our own inner work and healing our splits and our kind of shame around who we are, our sexuality, what wasn't okay, what is okay, all that stuff, and how it can be used in a distorted way if we're not onto ourselves. So really, it's deep work, and it's, the sacral chakra is where we hold all that self-worth stuff, where we hold that deep emotional context. So it can also be where, as people rise in power, whether it be in the healing community or whether it be politically or whatever, then there can be, if not the sacral isn't worked with and brought into balance, shall we say, and being able to work with the energies that come up. I mean, think about John of God, for example, so we have to really it's not just outside of our community. We have to work with ourselves to actually support a purification of the sacral, I feel. And then as that will allow less hidden things, whether it's in ourselves or whether it's in the collective field,
Yeah, and that's so on point, because it's microcosmic and it's macrocosmic. So the vibration, the frequency that we're holding within ourselves, that hidden shut down shame consciousness has to then play itself out in the outer reality. how it works, because we are the creators here. So we are emitting via our frequency into this hologram, and then it's like a feedback loop to ourselves. And so instead of everyone pointing the finger at each other, and even just to mention, you know, John of God, if people don't know about his story, it's been found, you know, and he was sort of sung the praises by Oprah and all of these kind of characters that we're finding out maybe actually, you know, they're not the gurus, they're not the spiritual leaders. But this fellow actually did have a series of sex slaves held underground. Like it's right there. It's showing us in the collective exactly what we're doing to ourselves to some degree. And people hearing that may say, well, that's not me, I would never do that. But where can we take responsibility to change it in the macrocosm? Where can we heal what's in the tunnels or underground, as you say? And of course those are those lower chakras. And so diving in, doing the inner transformation, alchemizing always, you know, the lead to the gold, it's that same process all the time, really does change the outer reality. And I feel like it's staring us in the face in a way that we can't avoid, not for the conscious community anyway. I know there's a lot of cognitive dissonance and just that need to push it away from many people. But if the light workers who will be listening to this conversation can take some of this insight and apply it to themselves, you know, can we all agree that we can do a little bit more clearing of those lower chakras, in particular that sacral chakra? I have a dear girlfriend who just the other day I was talking to her about the child sex trafficking, and she said, please, I cannot have this conversation. She said, I'm so happy you're talking about it. She said, but I just can't go there. And that's a very conscious woman, you know, that's a woman who works in art. So it's an insight that for some reason there's just absolute shutdown. So what would you say about that, Michael, for people that just push it away, where they can't face it?
Well, I think it's I think if you have had experiences growing up where there has been misconduct, or there has been, you've dealt with darkness in your life in some form, then I feel like you're not so shy of diving in and putting your boots on and helping out. I think if you haven't had that, if it's just too much for your psyche, if it's just way too much for the psyche that they could believe that something like that could happen in the world, then you've got to wonder if there is an aspect of themselves that they're unable to look at, you know, or an aspect of themselves that, or the collective that they're unable to look at. And so I would just be getting curious around that, you know.
That's a really great word. The curiosity is such a great word when it comes to everything and anything that's going on. When you have curiosity, it negates judgment. There's no judgment there. You're just becoming the eternal witness, the curious observer. And when you put yourself into that space, which really is a high dimensional space, it takes away the right, wrong, good, bad. And I know, again, that's a divine paradox, because from the third dimensional perspective, it's absolutely wrong what's happening to children who are being abused. You know, we're hearing the most horrendous stories of why with the satanic rituals they want to invert the kundalini. They're taking life force. You know, of course that comes down from the spinal column. So we're not going to mention the actual physical act here in today's podcast, but people know what I'm referring to. And it's beyond diabolical. It causes your whole being to contract. You feel nauseous. And this is where we can slip, because we can go into being a loose feed then for the dark siders, which is what they want as well, that we are so overwhelmed and so overcome by some of this information that we then get in a state of angst and apathy and confusion and you know, anguish. And so that's feeding them again. If we stay locked into that energy, that's feeding that dark side, because that's their fuel supply is our low vibrations. And so today is meant to empower everyone. Okay, let's look at it. Let's stare it in the face, because we don't want it at our back. We don't want it haunting us, hunting us. We need to turn and look the evil in the eye and take responsibility for our part in it, and do the deep dive, do the deep inner healing, because as light workers, we know within, without, You know, the Hermetic principles are going to apply always. That's how the hologram works. So yeah, it's definitely time, and it gives us a sense of empowerment rather than staying locked in victim consciousness that there's really no way to change any of this. It's very, very powerful times at the moment. There's so many blessed souls, of course, who have been involved in those satanic rituals. And, if anyone is listening today that has been involved in that, please know that you are loved, you are seen, you are heard, you are worshipped. You never did anything wrong, but you did choose as a soul to have experiences. And so for both of us, Michael, we will always go to a higher perspective of why something is happening. And I think that's the gift of a psychic or a shaman like yourself, that there's a way to view things from that highest consciousness, that souls do come into the third dimension to play out a lot of anguish, a lot of treachery, a lot of destruction. It has to be there. It has to be a contrast point to that loving frequency that we embody when we're in singularity. Again, it never makes sense to the 3D mind why we choose such pain for ourselves ever. What do you have so many clients I know that you work with. How do you impart that to people, why it's so destructive here in the third dimension?
Well, I mean, in a multidimensional context, I would say that we've all played different roles many, many times. And I think tying it back to this time we're in now and the Egyptian Syrian energies that are coming through the Leo portal and the 8-8 Lionsgate, I feel this is a time that brings back us back to Egypt and brings us back to one of the main fracture points, I feel, of where ritual abuse started in this realm, in this 3D realm around children, in the catacombs, underneath the mystery schools. So there was, that was where many souls were young souls passed, and I think that some of us even may have been around that time, in those times. So we've come back to sort of correct wrongs, whether we were predators then or whether we were unable to save the children at that time. So I feel like that is part of the biggest perspective, that there is contrast. There has been many lives. Sometimes, if you're in the middle of something that is awful, there's just nothing that's going to cut it, though. There's nothing that's going to cut it, and you just have to be with that client, be with that person, and let them go through it, go through the healing, which is often multidimensional, because there's been many soul fractures in their timeline around sexual abduction, forced breeding programs in the galactic realm, and so there's many times where this has been karmically imprinted into their soul. So it's not something that is easily, I feel, dissolved, but we are at this time working towards some resolution of that.
Yeah, that ability just to sit with certain frequencies that are so horrendous is such a powerful art form in itself. The Matrix is designed to distract us in every which way possible, whether it's overeating, whether it's overstimulation through, all sorts of entertainment. The list goes on of how you can engage in the Matrix and negate yourself, negate your own feelings, negate your own frequency, but to just with self, to sit with what is, and even possibly for many of us, know and accept that we have been a predator, a perpetrator in a past lifetime. That's a heavy load. At that point, we probably do want to run from ourselves, because that shame and that guilt and that horror is going to rise up. So, but this is what we're being asked to do. Let's go back to Egypt and let's, break that down. And why did it go wrong from your perspective? at what point did we allow or give permission for this to happen as a conscious collective, that we chose to play out these experiences, that we chose, I guess, Michael, to understand energy from a perspective of taking it from someone else as opposed to creating it from within?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the reptilian energies, the Draco reptilian energies that, they came down and infiltrated the mystery schools, and so this is why I feel it ties into also the energy of Thoth and the energy of the sacred geometry, because there was corruption within the mystery schools as things evolved, because there was hijacking of some of the priests and priestesses, and then some of the rituals began in secret, in private, underground. So this feels like one of the initiation points where they fractured souls, young souls, where they initiated this ritual into the collective consciousness of the earth, and this is why it's so important not to just wipe out the whole of the mystery school lineage, because there has been great teachings. Sure, things went sideways towards the end, but it's not. There's some profound alchemy that is found within the energies of Egypt, the Lion's Gate, and so I find it a little bit too black and white to say it's all been distorted, everything.
Yeah. Again, it's that coming back to that multidimensional perspective, that from a higher consciousness view, this was all meant to play itself out. Now, that's a lot of people who are in the spiritual community, I know, who I deal with, will combat me at that time, because people say, no, evil's evil. We're not meant to embrace it at all. It is black and white. We're meant to conquer it, and it should never, we made a mistake. This experiment, this human experiment went wrong, and it was never meant to play out. For me personally, and it sounds like for you as well, Michael, it's not like that, because in my mind, nothing is separate from creation. Therefore, we are collectively choosing certain experiences to play themselves out. And I always come back to, we never get held, stuck, or trapped in any experience, because creation itself, the universe, is in a state of flux. So whilst, again, from a 3D perspective, yes, it's wrong. From a higher perspective, we were definitely meant to take the deep dive, because we wouldn't understand and appreciate our love, light, source, energy, quality, frequency, unless we'd had a contrast. So to me, it's all part of the same. That does not mean that we bypass or don't hold space for ourselves or for clients, for those who are working with clients like yourself, to move through those horrors. When I have, and I've been through sexual abuse myself growing up, on many different occasions. And so this is subject matter that, I know a lot about as a psychologist, counselor for years. I've just endless clients that I've worked with in this way, because I think I magnetize them as well because of my frequency. And, having done the deep dives for myself and having healed myself and still healing myself and supporting many others, what I found with particularly those who've been through the satanic ritual abuse, I have talked to enough people, read enough, and investigated enough, talked to my masters, ascended masters, and realized that at the point of absolute horror and darkness, the light will come in at that time. And so there's a beautiful lady, Fiona Barnett, who, years and years and years of ritual abuse. And, she was with children that did lose their lives. She was born to a satanic family. She was involved, perpetrated on, but knew other children that really would have been abducted or would have been foster kids or something that got involved. And unfortunately, these kids did lose their life, and she witnessed horror upon horror upon horror. But she did say that these kids reported that whilst they were going through such trauma, that the light man came to them. The light man would always be there. And she knew that was Jesus, that at that point of of absolute horror, Jesus appeared. And this is what we have to understand between the interplay between light and dark, is that the light will always balance out the dark. And in fact, because the light holds more power within itself, it will automatically take those children into another frequency. They'll be drawn out of their bodies and supported and protected at those times. This is why it's very, very difficult for anyone who hasn't been through those experiences to understand. And I think it's why people have cognitive dissonance, because they can't understand how that horror can exist. But if you know at the point of that absolute, darkness, that the light comes, there's always a way through it. There's always a way to understand, I guess, how energy works and how no matter what happens to us, we are always okay. Now, that sounds like a paradox, but we have to go there. We have to know we will never be given anything that the soul cannot cope with, and that the soul, for some reason that, again, I have to repeat, it doesn't make sense to the 3D mind, the soul actually chooses the experience. The soul actually chooses the experience. So, I find that really comforting, because I've had many a battle with the ascended masters. Like, I'll be in my meditation going, it's just wrong. This has to stop. This can't go on. And they say, you're not understanding energy. We need to educate you about energy. We need to take you deeper into this. So it's been, I've been deep in this particular healing phase for many, many years, working through that deeper understanding why we've done this to ourselves. But let's keep talking about Egypt, because this is so fascinating. How then, you talked about it starting underground, so therefore we've never left that way of.
Well, I think it was what I hear as we talk is that it was one of the main instigation points of that kind of ritual, of that kind of use. I mean, yes, there's been off-world experiences of ritual sexual abuse and interspecies breeding and forced breeding programs, but here, this is it. I think you're right. I think they needed to. We have to resolve this in the 3D realm. Yeah, we have to resolve this in the 3D realm. And as we do it in this timeline, it's all going to domino back in. And that's why the galactics are helping us so much at this time, because it's going to stop some of these practices if we can purify it out, bring it to the surface, and resolve it within ourselves as a collective. I think that's why there's so much interest in it at the moment. But back to Egypt, there's a little energy transmission coming through if we want to do that.
Yes, please, Michael.
So, and this is around the throat, yeah. So I apologize if this is a little graphic, yeah. But so there's a ritual, and then the neck snapped, yeah. The neck snapped, and this is also ties into now as well, but this is around where the neck is snapped at the end, and so we want to release that torture of the neck snapping, because it also is held in the collective field, even though many aren't aware of what goes on. And this is also shutting down the collective throat chakra, yeah. So we want to release this energy, and it doesn't feel from so much right now this timeline, but it feels like it was imprinted in the Egyptian timeline. So I'm just going to do some light language for those that don't know what that is. Sound healing, listen to vibration, focus on your throat chakra, and see what happens for you, okay? Ishkata dodora barkishka bargana de dedicata dodora bargata da gabadana rakatike badada gabadika shalabata da apatovaji kibarikuto da gabadkondara parayandara piandara pukatandara yandara barganta de gabadikashkata da arkata da shapatuto da de shapoto de tatu shapato da riki shonana gabadukata da raka shalabati pototo da riki arandara gabadike shete Shit, ki poro na ka shika shit ki karanda de kaputo de ki barala ki alaka.
Wow.
So just taking a breath, taking a moment. Yeah. So that energy, I will say, is about freeing us from our own cage. Yeah.
Wow, that was so powerful. You can really feel that. I felt like almost like it speared into my throat chakra there. That was just like really went in. Yeah. And for anyone listening, if you do have some past life memory as we're talking, or particularly with that light language, I had it, with the neck snapping, I got exactly what that was about. I think it's worth us exploring why these satanic rituals go on in terms of when we look at it from energy. And as I mentioned before, it's the taking of energy as opposed to cultivating the energy from deep within. So this is why it goes on. That sense of power is very alluring to us all. We're all having to check the ego constantly. We're all having to be mindful of why we need maybe even to be out in the public eye. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from just being seen for the sake of being seen because we're not able to give ourselves the love that we truly crave? There's a whole spectrum of how we're misusing our energy and how we're misusing our ego. But when we get down to the base level of why some of these practices are going on, it's power. It is about power. It's not even about sexuality. Sexual distortion and abuse is because people are seeking power, and the temptation, it just becomes so overwhelming once that fix starts to be experienced. It becomes and then it runs its own evil and perverted cycle, because it's that constant need then for having that that energy fill you, distorted energy fill you. And so this is how it just can run amok. And so we're seeing it, we're all part of it. It's a spectrum. We're seeing the absolute depths of depravity, but somewhere we've been sitting on that spectrum ourselves. And I'm glad that you brought up that it was even us there in the past timeline. And I would go as far as to say, my investigations of spirituality and how energy works and how it's all just one consciousness, we must have somewhere played out all of the roles. We must have, through this galactic cycle. How could we not?
And I think it's very coming in with a lot of energy, most of us, coming in with a lot of potency, and whatever experiences we experienced like early years, there's a fine line between working with source and spiritual connection and going sexual with it, so it's, I think, something that's easy for any of us to do. So it's again, not shaming ourselves if we do go in that direction at times. I'm not saying like really dark acts, but just, I guess we could be using our creative force in a different way. So I think it's just human nature, and there's a lot of, and even in a very gentle way, there's shame around that. So I think it is about us not feeling ashamed of who we are, because then if we're not okay with our own sexuality or charge or vitality, and then we're not going to want to look either, we're not going to want to look at these other things at times.
Yes. And of course, we have to look at the inverted matrix. We have to look at why we inverted the pure goddess consciousness. And therefore, as we move back into the ascension life wave, it's that same distorted, inverted energy of sexuality, or as you said, your creative energy, which is this one and the same thing. It's how then can we not continue to suppress it how can we utilize that same life force to help us rise through the ascension? And this is where it can be really confusing for people, because if there's been such distortion, such horror, such destruction with our sexual frequency, maybe therefore we just want to shut it down. We don't even want to look at it. We're like, well, I'll just be celibate for the rest of time. And celibacy for a period of time is wonderful. You know, give yourself that space if you need to heal and to transform and to alchemize. But at some point, that pulsation, that sexual pulsation, that creative pulsation will be felt within you. What do you do at that time when it surges again? Because it's so powerful, it overwhelms. That's how it becomes so distorted and so depraved. But in the light side, it's what rises us back into the pure God, goddess consciousness, because that's what creation is. It's a pulsation wave of energy, you know, burst out of dark matter, and, you know, the Sapphire or Sophia frequency, you know, came as gold light. You know, it's that Shakti feminine force that came from the masculine void, and it's all the other way around. You know, I never know which one's the masculine, which one's the feminine, but they work in harmony.
I know you mean.
It's the void, the feminine, the womb, and then the, you know, anyway, who knows? But however we perceive that, you know, that Genesis point, you know, and the root Genesis all the time, because it's always cycling back into itself, you know, the toroidal field of coming out into creation, then moving back into the source, you know, whether you see that as the heart or however people see that galactically. We've all got our own way of perceiving what that is, but the point is, it's pure pulsation. It's pure pulsation. And, you know, I've talked to so many men that feel ashamed because when they were, you know, and you may have felt this way too, Michael, that when they were young men, teenagers, you know, the pulsation in down below was so overwhelming that it sent them in all directions, that, you know, created all sorts
You mean
of
only when they're young? What do you mean?
and still today. Well, that's the beauty of continuing to do the inner healing and staying on the light side. It never leaves you.
But I think this is a good conversation.
That pulsation. Yeah,
I think it's a good conversation because you have to honor and have fun, be playful, and take out the shaming of divine power through the Kundalini charge. Yeah, the Kundalini charge. So I think it's because it's been pushed down and made wrong by religious institutions, by the paradox, the over-sexualization of children. There's so much distortion which makes it not okay on so many different levels. But once we can sort of accept who we are, which in our power, in our vital energy, then there's no harm. You know, there's no harm. But I feel like let's do a little bit on the. Someone just mentioned the root chakra. Yeah, should we do a little bit on the interface between the between the root and the sacral? Because the other thing here that I think it's important to recognize that also, you know, like many habits, many of us have come in with habits or addictions. Some might say that also have not been just this lifetime. So I think sometimes when, especially guys, but I know women too, it's not just men, but there's kind of like when there's anxiety in the energy field, and when stuff and so much is going on in the world right now, it can force you down a sexual route to sort of release and to so it's not always, it's also about anxiety at times, I feel, you know, a way to decompress, de-stress in some ways. Yeah. Did the charge. This is around primal the right to be. Primal, the right to be. It's okay to surrender to the earth. It's okay to be who you are right now, today. So this is an interface between the base chakra and the sacral. So it's all right to be you. It's all right to be you, who you are today, and without having to do anything about that or push it away or be something else, you know. So surrender in a nutshell, I guess. Ashke padede barkanda de batata gishka ishka arkanda ikapade ishka bar andarge ala ishka ishke elege in arka andara barka andarge ala ka ishka a el karandrege barka padishke de batata do kanaka shanda tata kipata shanta tata kipotona na karka kete de kipatika teki dushile baraka. So just a little word from, I guess, Thoth, you would say, yeah, in English, that we are a series of portals, yeah. We're a series of portals that are being amplified. Yeah. So as these are amplified and as the alignments of certain galactic points are lining up with the Earth, then that is corresponding to each of us individually, depending on our inception point. So our date of birth. In this realm, that is forcing energy up and out of the chakras, yeah, especially the lower ones right now. So, and especially in this Lion's Gate, I feel like the energy started about the 7-7, and it will continue till after the Lion's Gate. Is very much around the energy of repressed sexuality, repressed sacral energy, self-worth stuff. So it's quite pertinent that we did this today, you know.
Wow. Powerful. Just magic. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love that you mentioned the anxiety around what's going on in these chakras, and why we need to draw our attention back to that point. And what's coming through for me is, well, of course we would feel anxious, because once that pulsation starts to rev up again, what do we do with it? We don't want to go dark side with it. We don't want to misuse anyone. We don't want to take power off anyone else. Where do we funnel? Where do we channel that energy? Because if it really starts to kick up, if the Kundalini really starts to fire, you could be in a perpetual state of orgasm, really, as it's moving up through the chakras and overflowing like a fountain out of the crown, and then regenerating again up through the Muladhara or the base chakra. So that's a powerful force. What can we do with it? And I guess the insight is to know that that's your innocence, that is your purity. And I feel for many people, they don't put those two qualities together. They don't put their sexuality and innocence together. They seem like they're separate concepts, but actually they're one and the same. And even even sacred erotica needs to be explored here, because erotica comes from eros. Eros actually is a beautiful deity, or a beautiful god, if you like. And I say god in inverted commas because, we're not saying we're not gods, we're gods too. It's just all energy of the universe. But that erotic energy needs to be harnessed, not suppressed. But again, because of the overwhelming side of it, what to do with it? And for me, being a yogi for so long, for you, all the practices you do, you do a lot of yoga, you do so much meditation and ritual work. There's a way to sit with self and just be in that erotic bliss without the need to quell that energy through, a base chakra orgasm, without the need to, even share that energy with another person. If the right person's there to have that beautiful lovemaking, fabulous. If it's not, sit with self, because really, if you don't quell the energy, if you don't have that base chakra orgasm, and you start to harness it up through the chakras, and you start to let it run through your meridian system and out into your auric body, it is the highest frequency of energy here on the planet. And utilized for the good, you can transform anything. You can alchemize anything. And you can be the creative potential that you always knew that you were destined to be. And so this is when you can start getting into supernatural powers. So your telekinesis can come online, your ability for, psychic awareness. For me, I know I can pretty much manifest anything at will once that sexual creation pulsation energy is alive and kicking. And interestingly, I have been celibate for over 2 years now. I made that choice. Well, I don't know whether I made the choice. I think the choice was made for me, Michael. But in 2020, there was so much going on that I knew that I was on mission, like I'd never been before. And I've been on mission for like a long time, like yourself. But it was like, no, this activation took me to another level. And I was in a relationship at the time, which we consciously chose to dissolve the romance side of it anyway at that point, because we both needed space and clarity. Some people were able to maintain their relationships. A lot of people, consciously, same as what I did, chose to move away from that just to have space to do whatever alchemy needed to be done from within. But it didn't mean that I lost my ability to be orgasmic. And in fact, I started doing more rituals around, laying naked in the sun, allowing the sun to penetrate me, and those sort of rituals, feeling the pulsation of Mother Earth. And I would say probably more than ever, I am more creative, more able to manifest, more sexually alive than I ever have been before, yet haven't actually had, encounter with another individual for over 2 years. So it's been really refreshing for me, particularly with my, past abuse, that, I could be in command of my sexual energy this time without suppressing it, without, needing to be frigid, without needing to push that force away. Because I think when I was a younger woman, you would have just found someone to interact with, and that was great too, like no problem with it. But, I'm heading towards 50 now, and it's just like, you know what, I'm just going to press pause and see how I can conduct this energy within myself. And, it's been absolutely delightful and so rewarding. So if anyone, is listening where they're not in a relationship, please don't shut down your sexual energy. Activate it maybe in a way you've never activated before. Go and lay on the earth, feel the frequency of the sun.
And
for me,
this feels like an important point. I keep thinking about when I started back in the day when I was doing my somatic training, and we got beautiful message from
Hi Riley. Darling, you're coming back on the show soon, and we did a show, the three of us together. I had to pick this up.
But what I was going to say was, just around trauma, whether it's sexual or otherwise, other kinds of trauma to the physical form. When we've had that early on, many of us, experience aliveness, should we say, as dangerous. Initially, when the body comes back online in its vitality, if it's shut down early on, I know you know all this because of your training as well, that it takes a while for you to, as a being, to feel safe and to explore and to be okay with having this energy, this vitality running through you, that it's not going to harm you. It's not dangerous, and you won't. It's not going to go somewhere bad. So I love the fact that you took time out to explore that yourself, and other people in whether you're in a relationship or you're not. It just feels an important piece to come. It's coming home really to self. Yeah, coming home to self, and really knowing that now it is in this day, in this moment, it is okay to be vital, and to work with that energy.
Yeah, that's so beautiful, Michael. And we're really going to move into a multi-orgasmic state. I mean, that's what's happening for the collective. So I would say for the people in the collective that have chosen to ascend at this time, because of course many people have not chosen to ascend at this time, because that's what's in alignment with their soul journey on the continuum of consciousness. So we pay reverence to people that are choosing another galactic cycle in the third dimension. Not good, not bad, not right, not wrong. It's perfect for souls.
Yes.
But
Yes.
for souls that are moving through this ascension gateway that's, available for us, and with all the photonic light that's also coming into the planet, more of those gamma rays, more of that pulsation, more of that frequency.
Yes.
So we are moving into a multi-orgasmic state. So we need to start to know how to be okay with these energies. And I love what you said. It can't cause us harm, but it's almost like a default pattern, particularly for those who've been abused, which is probably everyone in the collective just about in some way or another.
Exactly.
Lifetime,
Yeah.
It's not harmful, or you're not going to cause harm to anyone else. That would be the perpetrator side of it as well. So harnessing it, knowing that it's delightful, you're meant to revel in it. It's innocent. It's your pure divine core nature. It can't be separate from you. So all of this negation and pushing it away, cognitive dissonance, we have to, first of all, we have to look the evil in the eye. We have to confront it. We have to face it. We have to heal the shame within self. We have to alchemize, for those that didn't see my little graphic overlay at the beginning, was showing shame at the base level of the map of consciousness. We're moving into enlightenment. And of course, also with how consciousness works, you can be sitting in a very high frequency, more enlightened state one moment, and then the next moment you've slipped into shame. That can go on 10 20 times a day.
Totally.
You have to normalize that for everyone as well.
And I feel with I feel like Thoth is also, I feel like this is tying back to Thoth as well, because a lot of the mystery schools use tantric practice. It was very much working with the kundalini, and that's why some of the distortions happens with the children. But some of it, the original practices were very pure and divine in their origins, and I think that's why many of us that are in this community have cellular memory of those techniques and are very tantric energetically in nature, just by who we are, So, and that and that is the magic, that is the alchemy. But and I think that's why there's so mumuch fear also of people like Thoth, because really it's
tell me more about him, Michael, because you're such a beautiful channel of him, and I'm going to say you are him.
I don't know if
more about his teachings.
But I would say that
his teachings around sexuality.
He was a scribe, so he was a writer, written word, one of the first. If you want, you can research the Emerald Tablets. It is a book around consciousness that he wrote. He also, so I feel like for me, I can't, I don't, I just do my research through my channeling. And so he comes to me and he wants to work on our nervous system, on our cellular consciousness, on our neurobiology. He's very about regenesis of the organic structure of the body, so that we can hold high frequency light and also manage this acceleration that you were talking about, this photonic light acceleration that's coming in, that is, amplifying this Kundalini channel. So he comes often lately to me when I'm doing these transmissions online, to bring in frequencies to really work with the nervous system so that we can hold the light, without sort of going bang or whatever, and or needing to or getting exhausted or needing to blow off charge or whatever. So it's kind of just sort of helping us expand into this bandwidth of frequency. So, and also at a very cellular level, I feel he works with. So he's very, it's all about alchemy. He's very, it's a high intellect person, very high intellect. I feel like he's got many names, many times, but Thoth is the person I know him as. And he took some of the priests and priestesses when Egypt fell. I mean, when Atlantis fell for the final time, he took some of us to reestablish the crystal technology, the original light source frequency tools to Egypt. So it's the Atlantean wisdom that got passed down to Egypt. It then changed in form in the mystery schools of how we worked with it, but it was the original energy of Atlantis. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So again, coming back to the fear of being powerful, coming back to the fear of misuse of power, that has filtered down the timelines,
Yeah, I'm feeling that one so strongly. You and I did a show about this with Atlantis as well, and how the supernatural powers are coming back online at the moment as the DNA moves back to at least 12 strands of active DNA. That, of course, the supernatural powers are here. What are we going to do with them? Are we going to misuse them like we did back in the Atlantean times, and or like these, powerful gods on, in form on Earth or in Atlantis, and we'll send a beam out of our hand, and I'll corrupt your third eye with that beam, Michael. You pissed me off today, so that's it. The gods and goddesses at each other.
Yeah.
That's how I see it, like a big Marvel movie, like we're just playing it out.
But I honestly think that's why some people that hold cellular memory around Egypt, Thoth, for example, do have negative experiences held within their genealogy. So there is a fear of that energy, or even the sacred symbols,
Yeah. So let's, because we're coming to time, believe it or not. So let's dive into that. Why are there people in the community that are dogging on our beautiful Thoth and sacred geometry, like the flower of life?
So
how can we get them right, and also talk about how it's not always inverted technology? So I'll let you.
I think I all I want to say on that is, because I know you watched a video I did on my Facebook Live, and I brought that up, and it was linked to something you'd just seen as well, and so it's interesting that came in then. And I just feel that you have to trust your own purity. People sometimes say, how do you know you're channeling what you're channeling? How do you know you're not corrupt? How do you know a thought's not corrupt? How do you know da 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 da? And I go again from what I feel in my heart, how people that I support are benefiting from the work. If I feel like I'm doing harm, I will definitely stop, doing this work, But I feel people open, expand, connect with themselves more deeply. So I can't see any harm in that. I feel that people that are forever finding darkness in every piece of symbology, or every ascended master or angelic or wherever, if that's all, then you've got to wonder, are they connecting with their purity or not?
That's a very good point. Yeah, I love that.
You know what I mean? It's like,
because that's where their focus keeps going. Yeah.
Because I'm not saying it's not good to investigate stuff that's going on in the world, by the way, but it just feels that if your consciousness is always going to that's corrupt, then you've been taken down where there's not much left, and it's very kind of I feel distracting, and I feel that then I would be looking at my shadow.
Yeah.
I would be looking at my stuff around, why do I feel that this is not okay? I'd be curious around that for myself. Because
I love that. It's a fixation, an obsession, isn't it, for these people to keep pulling down and keep dismantling. What if someone's using say, the flower of life symbology, and their intention is pure, why do we need someone else's narrative to tell us that it's not? Who said so? If it's intention based, and also too, because we can commune with the galactics, but to me it's like communing with a human. If I get a frequency from a human that it doesn't make that human wrong, but it's not a frequency that matches mine. It's not a vibrational match, or that person does carry evil intent. I'm going to move myself out of their orbit. It's the same with I get a galactic frequency come through, and it's not of a higher loving resonance. I still might listen to them. I'll go, okay, and often I'll say, "What have you got to say?" I'm not going to give you much time. What have you got to say? Because even dark intel is a teaching. It'll give you an insight. I'll tell them to bugger off, but I mainly want to talk to the loving, benevolent, star beings.
So this is why I feel that when people come out with information that doesn't resonate for you, wish them well and move right along, I say, because there's a lot of distraction in our community, especially as all these energies are rising up within us. Fear, anxiety is going to get projected sometimes, I'm sure. I mean, I can. So we've just got to stay in our lane and really stay in our lane and do our work is what I feel, and trust in your purity, your innocence, and that you're doing the work that is necessary for your soul evolution and for your part of the planetary uplift right now. So that might be very different from somebody else's. Fine. But, I think we've got to just be careful. I personally have to be careful that I don't get too derailed, because, it's easy to then go into a bit of self-doubt, oh my God, I shouldn't be. But
yeah, I can't agree with you more about the trusting. And I love especially what you said, trust in your own innocence. Trust in your own innocence. I might have to quote that somewhere else, Michael. That's so on point. Trust in your own innocence. We have to trust the frequency that we feel about anything that we're interacting with. Even if for the person beside us, the frequency is negative, for us it might be positive. There is no one way home. We all carry the coordinates within ourselves. We all have the inner GPS in the heart space to make it home at the right time, space.
Totally. And I think this ties back to what we were talking about, the innocence of the children, yeah? So the innocence of the children, they use them in ritual sacrifice because they're the closest thing to source, God, consciousness, yeah? They're innocent, pure, divine beings. So that is, I watched this little clip, I can't remember who it was, but it was someone talking about the ritual sacrifices and saying they just want to destroy God in the name of Satan, So I think it's let's come back to our God source consciousness, even if there's things in the world that have tried to corrupt it or distort it or take us off track. It's about coming back to that inner child, innocence, the innocence of the inner being that knows intuitively what's right for each of us, and stick with that.
Yeah, I absolutely adore that. And the dark side is always showing us the truth. And that's something that maybe people don't truly understand, particularly if they look away from the dark side. You have to look at the dark side because they are showing us the truth. They're showing us, you said, what's important to them is innocence. That's what's important to them. That's pure life force energy. So it's exactly the same. They're always pointing in the direction that we need to go, but they're inverted. They're trying to destruct and deceive and manipulate and create horror and move in the they're the antithesis of the Christ consciousness or the Sapphire consciousness. This is about, though, understanding, okay, innocence is important. How do I cultivate that within myself? Sexuality is important. How do I cultivate that within myself? And then how do I use it for the highest good of all in a loving, benevolent, kind, compassionate, joyous, ecstatic way. But the dark side, people always poop on the dark side and their technologies. It's like, but let's have a look at what they're showing us. Let's have a look at how the devices work, how the computer works. We're an operating system exactly the same as the computer. I have, like, I'm looking at my computer, there's a command key. I have a command key in myself. I can command reality because I am the highest technology. As the human, I have the golden ticket here. Like, there's nothing higher in frequency or resonance than a human being. So let's remember to use our technology. Let's know that the dark side are showing us in the inverted reality who we are. So we must pay attention, but we must now turn it right side up, because not
be afraid of technology, of our technology, but also we are moving into the age of Aquarius, so there's going to be technological advancements, both to the human and to our life. So it's just whose hands are they in, really. So I feel it's exciting times.
It's exciting times, and you're right. Whose hands? Whose hands are they? What's the intention of those who are using the intention?
What's our intention? I think it's about our intention with who we are, our work, our connecting with the innocence within, and more and more trusting that, especially if we've had abuse as children where we didn't trust ourselves, So it's about, and I think all of this time is getting us to really, bit cliche, but stand in our sovereignty, and hold that.
There's no better word, is there? We keep using that word, but there's no better word. Like, that's it, our sovereignty. Yeah.
So stand in that inner resilience.
It's just beautiful. I look at AI and exactly what you said. Whose hands is it in? What's the intention behind it? How much are we going to allow it into the physical workings of our body? Do we really want to be transhuman? Do we want to, like the Neuralink, do we want to have a half, machine? Some people might choose that. I'm going to say no, not for me, because one timeline leads to machines and being hooked into those machines and algorithms that know you possibly better than you know yourself, unless you do a lot of inner work. And it's like a feedback loop. They're feeding back to you who you are. They're suggesting to you all the time, purchase this. This is who you want to hang out with. This is your interest. So this is where sovereignty must come into it. Utilize the technology to enhance your life. But if it leads to the end of the timeline where you're hooked up with machines, maybe that's not where you wanted to go, because God, which is self, is the highest technology. One is organic. One leads to that blissful eruption of that erotica again, of that creation pulsation wave, which is our theme for today. And the other one leads to, machines. It's sort of a no-brainer when you
and I think there's going to, like the consciousness is already split. I think it's another topic, I guess, but it does feel there's a lot unfolding that potentially will not take it all the way down that track.
Yeah, that's it. I think for people like you and I and many people who are listening, we have the ability to remote view, the looking glass technology. We can look into it and we can see where a potential timeline will lead. But as you say, it doesn't necessarily mean, it's 11/11. It's a confirmation. It doesn't necessarily mean that will play itself out. I often, feel that some of the timelines that I'm shown is more like a red light warning. Totally.
And I think we're in it. We're in that timeline collapse right now. I feel every day timelines are collapsing. So it feels energetically very full and chaotic right now, because there's so much.
We're timeline jumping all the time, aren't we?
Far out. So just got to keep doing the practices that we do to keep stabilized. That's why I feel like Thos has been working with me more lately, is to help us stabilize, because I feel like there is a big shift coming,
Beautiful. I got in trouble from someone the other day on a YouTube video of mine because I was sharing. I wasn't saying this is usual. Getting. Actually, no, that video did stay up. I've been censored. Videos wide. My Facebook is restricted. Anyway, we know we're speaking the truth. That's okay. All part of the fun. But she had a red hot go at me because what I was saying in my video was a timeline that I had been shown, which was, I thought that the lowest point of dissension was, what we've been talking about today, which, all the sexual depravity. But I was saying that I was shown that if the collective doesn't, get on with it and do the inner alchemy, that the apocalypse would play itself out, and with the food shortages that they're threatening, that ultimately cannibalism would be witnessed and would come into play, because people are being dumbed down, they're becoming animalistic, and so cannibalism isn't really a far stretch if there's not much to eat, and people have a warring energy within themselves because they may be chipped now because of certain medical procedures, which are then interacting off these frequency towers that the dark side's putting in. So they can be remote controlled. And this lady said, you're creating fear and you can't say all of that. And whilst I honor what she's saying and I get what she's saying, my point in the video was, but this is a potential timeline that I was shown. It's more of a warning. Hey, everyone, we don't want that to play out. So it's not really that difficult to meditate every day and start alchemizing some of this darkness within ourselves. Actually, it's quite joyous. May not be fun to begin with. And yeah, you're going to weep and wail and gnash your teeth and pull your hair out at times. But hey, it's preferable than these timelines, these really destructive timelines playing out on our precious earth. So, sometimes the psychics get really tired.
I think that also, when someone has, I don't know the lady, so I won't say too much, but I just feel that if someone has a strong reaction such as that, then there's some fear in them around that potential, really. But we have to be, as you say, we have to be open to unpacking the potential of these timelines so that we can dissolve them, and so that they aren't just created by us kind of looking in a different direction, So I think this is part of the timeline collapsing that we're doing by saying, well, no, we're not going that way, but knowing that it is a potential.
Yeah, because it creates activation. It creates wanting, the deep, urgent need to move towards the light. That's why I believe psychics do receive some of this information, not to perpetuate fear, because I'm certainly not one of those love light fake woke bypasses. I want to look at the darkness. I want to look at the mess. I want to look at the gun. Let's have a look at it. I'm a double Scorpio, so I serve well in the underworld. I was like, let's go there, because when we face
Scorpio rising Leon moons, it's just as intense.
Yeah. Oh, you'd be loving this time.
But yes, so then we are really made for this work, that Scorpio Leo energy is really it goes into the depths, goes into the depths, not afraid to shy away from that energy. And maybe some people don't want to look at it, but this is our work.
This is our work. The depths are a springboard to the light. You have to go there to truly, to go so low, crouch down so deep, and really enter those spaces. You will. Yes,
exactly. Because then you don't shy away from aspects of yourself, and then you don't shy away from aspects of the collective consciousness, and that's important if we're not going to keep things hidden.
Yeah, that's right. If we really want to help those children in the tunnel, exactly what you just said. I hope everyone hears what you just said. We can't keep it hidden. We have to dive in. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, my beautiful brother. If there's anything you want to round it, this is great. I'm glad we took the deep dive into this, and thank you to everyone as always for the beautiful comments, and we love you all, and we know we're doing this as one light team. So Michael, if there's anything else that's coming through,
okay,
let's see.
So So let's just work with the spinal column, yeah, around our Kundalini life force. This is like there's two on the back of the sacral chakra, around the sacrum area of the spine, yeah. There's two like little light nodules, if you will, that are, and that we're just going to sort of invite them to pulsate and open. So this comes back to, I feel, Egyptian timeline. And if this doesn't resonate with you in what I'm saying, just feel the area of your sacrum at the back. And it's just opening these two little energy channels to allow flow, unimpeded flow. So if we, and I feel like because of what many of us saw in Egypt, we kind of squeezed on our energy a little, so that, because it was a little bit shocking, yeah. So this is to release any like impediment to flow, if you will, of our Kundalini from the back of the sacrum area. Ashe bananda de gebadudu de shike barkata de gebarkanta de gebadaranda de gebarkanta de gebarkanta de gebarkanta de gebaraga. Shile bargianda de barkushka de bargetu kutu de gebarkanta de paraganda de ka. Shall barkonda de gebaranda de gebadarana naka. Shall batianta de gepatianta de gepatianta de gepatianta de gepatutu de nyanda de ki. Shile pianda la 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 ka yaka kaka kititi ganda de gebarkota de ki. Shall bargianda de ka kaka shititi de ki kataka kaka shalaka shitigerali katutu shelebaragi kanaka shelebaragi kalaka shelebaragi kalaka. Thank you.
You're just such a magical being. How blessed are we all to have you here on the planet at this time? And
well, you got to have some fun, hey, and amongst the shit show.
Couldn't have missed it, hey? You're like, I'm on Earth. Let's do this.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure to be with you, to share presence, to share company, and share your wisdom. Yeah.
Love you. So thank you, everyone, and thank you to everyone who's here volunteered to come to Earth at this time to get this show on the road. So off we go through the Ascension Gateway. Much love, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you. Bye-bye.